Hello and welcome to the Permaculture Herbalism segment of the Elder Tree podcast. I am your host, Tennille Christensen from Earth Mama, where I teach people how to thrive and get skilled for sustainability. As an educator, kitchen witch, and plant lover, I welcome you to tune in as I interview permaculturalists from around the world. We will learn holistic ways of integrating plants into our homes, gardens, and communities for healing. Together, we will explore the art and science of this regenerative design system and harvest the collective wisdom. Permaculture offers a pathway to empower people to develop their lifestyles and landscapes. So let's discover how to grow and know plants with a purpose.
Gain back that sovereignty and agency over our bodies at the most special times, birth and death, and I mean, not that everything in between isn't special, but they are sacred, special moments. We're whole and perfect when we're born, right? And we are when we die too, when someone is in complete and peace and not in fear, and everything in between is kind of this discovery, and then we go home, right? We come here to explore, learn, we go home. So we take the smells, there's an amazing sense of nurture when it comes to flowers and perfumes and smells and plants,
Melinda Norris grew up with a permaculture lifestyle in the suburbs of Melbourne, influenced by her parents who gardened and built their own home. She is the youngest of a large extended family of immigrants and experienced death and meeting her ancestral village as a youngster. With a curious nature, she was destined for adventure and has lived a full life exploring, creating, and travelling. In saying that, Melinda is a local of our Far North Queensland region and is professionally best known as a festival and event producer, arts worker, and more recently, a tiny house builder. Today, though, she's here to discuss a deeply personal topic that resonates with many: our relationship with death and dying. Melinda is a death doula, a term that means helper, who facilitates, guides, and emotionally supports families. She is a bridge to allay fears, communicate expectations, and gently guide individuals towards grace and peace during the dying journey. Through stories and wisdom from her ongoing reverence of this profound subject, Melinda offers a unique perspective on this conversation that is increasingly present in our global collective. Thanks so much, Melinda, for joining me for this podcast, and I'm excited about talking about permaculture, of course. However, you have studied to be a death doula, and I feel like this is a really important conversation to be having and sharing with our community. It's very potent in my life right now, and when I thought about where can I get advice around how to not just work with death, like I think the grief side of things is something I've been working through. However, the practical side of things, and we have a new wave of birth doulas, and there's a new wave of death doulas, and so I'd love to open up the conversation and talk about what that is, what it looks like, what kind of things that you're doing in this role, and just bring the conversation of death to our community. So first of all, before we jump into that, how has permaculture influenced your life?
Well, okay, so I didn't even know it was permaculture, and it's been coined it's short for permanent culture, if that's correct.
Yeah.
So I grew up with a European mother, or both my parents are European, and it already existed. I remember my mother trying to convince the neighbours to knock down where the fence joins and create a chicken coop, and then we've still got privacy, but we've all got chickens, and they've got two, and they're looking at her like she's crazy. This is the 70s in Melbourne, and she had to go to the council to ask to get a water tank to collect the roof water, the rainwater, and they rejected her and said it's just unsightly. That was the reason she couldn't get a rainwater tank, and now you would know that you cannot build a house without a water tank. So I think coming from, both my parents met here after the war, so I was born here, my sisters were born here, so and they were both much older, so they had their children in their 30s, 40s, 50s, so that inherit growing your own food and having chickens and lots of ceremony and lots of culture around food and family and tribe was always there, you know, and back then there was no childcare, there was no aged care. And also in our culture, you look after that. You don't, you know, we talked about this earlier, but yeah, I had access to many dying people as a child. So it was very odd for me to grow up and then meet all these people who felt really uncomfortable around death and funerals and didn't know what to do. For us, it was, I literally went to probably as many funerals as I did weddings as a child and a teenager. So permaculture's featured very heavily. And one of my favourite things now, after doing some more research and courses in death Douling, you know, people go, oh, you know, they really think death is the opposite of life. So as Earth Mama, I say to you, how much life is there in compost, right?
Absolutely. I wrote a blog about that. It's proof that there's life after death.
That's right. And they're actually inseparable, those concepts. And does death actually exist? So recently I've been doing some study around, well, we need a word for it, right? So we can talk about it. But does cold exist, or is cold just the absence of heat, right? Which it is, right? Does death exist, or is it just the absence of this physical life, right? Because you can't kill energy, you can't do anything with energy, it lives on. So your soul, your spirit will just transform. You know, you cannot make that energy die. So, you know, but we use the terminology to describe it and talk about it. But the more research I've done and going back to my youthful experiences where I would literally see, you know, going to all these funerals, I would see what I now know is called a psychopomp. But I didn't know, there's an actual term for a soul guide. Like there are ancestors that come and to guide you. And as a kid, I'd be at the funeral going, who's that person in the corner? And Mum would be like, shut up, weirdo. But now I know that I can see that. And, you know, so really, I don't think there's a death. I think there's a separation from like a soul release, a spirit release from the body.
Yep.
To the spiritual, you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. I cared for my grandmother who was very close to, she had a brain tumor, and so that was an initiation into, I've lost people in the past, but as a child wasn't really connected to their dying process. And I remember one day in the room, she was talking to her husband and her son at the doorway, having a conversation with them and saying, I'm not ready to go yet, but come back when I am. So their energy, their spirit came as the representation of the soul family to take her away. And I was just like, oh, wow. You hear these stories, but to actually live it and see it, it's
And was she at home?
Yeah. She was in their family house.
Right. So this is one of my most important experiences and a message I really want to get out to the community is how important it is to die well and plan it. And, because we used to birth at home, we used to die at home. We don't do that anymore. We do it in hospitals. And our guides, the whole hospital is a massive interference for them. They can get there, but I just find that I'll speak about my father's death that was 2 years ago, and he died in the house he built in the 60s. And for the last 3 or 4 days, he was between worlds. And because we had 24/7 people caring for him, every night you'd get there and you couldn't wait to hear the stories because Dad was conversing back and forth with the guides that were coming to get him. And of course he was a little bit frightened at first, but then we could ask Dad questions and he would ask them, and they would respond. And Dad, so we've got this full book. We've got him talking to them. We've got descriptions of them.
Wow.
And for everyone I know that had that really peaceful, calm passing in a safe, beautiful place, has that amazing experience and doesn't feel scared, and it's just one of the best gifts you can give yourself or anyone else. So that really, really nailed it. Coffin. But, you know, in fact, now that we're talking about this, you'll hear all of these nuances in our language. I'm dying to know, you know.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot, but not really. Not about the important parts of it, right?
Well, and this is, I noticed this, you know, we joke about it, and there's talk about it, but there's not the conversations that need happening. And you're now going through an experience where, had those conversations happen, a living will, why not attend your own wake? Hello.
Yes.
You know, like, people spend, and again, it ties in with our society and guilt. People will spend, you know, it's so inconvenient, I've got to go to London to go to a family funeral or whatever, and it's like, visit them while they're alive. Like, forget it. Like, who cares? Like, visit me while I'm alive. Don't come to my funeral, you know?
Yeah. Say all of the things, the gratitude, the what you mean in my life, and all of that before.
Yeah.
You know,
and I feel very privileged that I kind of grew up in that space where we did care for our dying in our own homes, that it was such a natural progression for when my mother part was dying and when my father did, that, you know, the nurses were like, you lot are weird, you know how to do this. Like, they just kind of left us alone and would just check in once a week, and, you know. So, and it just, it does sadden me that a lot of people will miss out on that because we've institutionalized these two most important bookends of our life.
Absolutely, which is why I'm so grateful to be having this conversation with you. You know, in the world of permaculture, we have all of those, you know, it's a design system to bring about this permanent culture, and we've got all of the physical things like the land stewardship and growing gardens and designing that for harmony. But then there's those invisible structures like our finances and education and birth and death. Like that, if you look at the permaculture flower, though, that is a domain. And so how can we design our systems so that there is harmony, so that it does bring forth a sustainable future for people and industry? You know, just this recent experience of working with, you know, funeral parlors and stuff like that. It's like there is a lot of money in that. A lot of people couldn't probably afford that. But it's also handed over and it's external, and it's like, it just, for me, it seemed, my grandmother paid for her funeral prior, but she gave me a set of wishes, and one of them was a simple thing like, I want my casket maroon because that was the colour that I ran for Queensland and Australia when I went to the Olympics.
Wow.
So that was important to her. She also said, don't buy flowers. I have a garden. She had the most amazing garden. Please pick all of the flowers. Don't buy me any. So those two things, when it come to, you know, organizing her funeral, it was actually really difficult for the funeral. The funeral parlor were like, oh no, we don't do maroon caskets. I'm like, okay, but we need one. So what do we need to do to make that happen? Or will we just have these three options? Said, okay, so I'll get the cheapest option because I'll come with the paint, the maroon paint, and I will do it myself if you can't organize somebody on your team to do it. And it was this big thing, but I wasn't going to stop until it was done. And so it was done. But just the process of our whole family walking around my grandmother's garden and picking the flowers was so beautiful, and we all got to revel in this creation that she made. And I know she planned that, you know, to have that experience where we're all just like, wow, her hands won't touch this garden again, and whoever buys this house, has to be a gardener because we want her legacy to continue and we found the right person. But just taking all of the flowers in our car and all standing together to decorate and cover, you know, and having the kids involved to decorate and put her flowers all through the space and onto her casket, that was meaningful.
Yes. And first of all, well done for for saying this is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And these are exactly the things, and, you know, and you talked about an industry. It's a death industry. It's side by side with the medical pharmaceutical industry. There are people making incredible money off it, and there doesn't need to be. You don't even have to have a casket. You can, you know, and there are biodegradable cardboard ones, and you can make your own. You know, my father was a woodworker, you know. There's a great organisation in New Zealand, I can't remember what they're called, but it's like a men's shed or a she shed, and you make your own coffin. And they actually have this design that it's a coffee table. You can use it as a coffee table.
In the meantime.
In the meantime. And then when you do it, it's just a little, you know, transformer conversion, and you've got, you know, and again, a lot of people leave them plain because they want their grandchildren to paint them, leave messages on them. So what you've done in that process, and clever grandma, is you've created ceremony and ritual around that, which was always there but has been taken away.
Yeah.
So you have created memories for all your family by doing that.
Yeah.
My mother was an avid gardener, as I said before too, and she had an incredible rose garden, and she passed in February, and everything was in bloom. So again, we used all her flowers, and we had the wake in the garden. We had a garden party.
Wow.
And so we couldn't find that the buyer wasn't a garden person. So we actually, part of the contract was we're digging these roses out and we're transferring them to somewhere else or family.
Where they will live on.
So that was part of it.
Yeah, beautiful. There's so many different ways when we like have the intention and make the way for it, organize it.
But if we still speak about the finances are a thing, and people go, oh, okay, you do this, you do that. None of that. You don't even need to actually have a funeral. You can have a gathering at home. You can keep your loved one at home for days. There's technology that allows that now. They don't want it because, again, it's an industry. They just want bam, bam, in and out. They don't want complicated. You know, some places won't take other flowers, like it's this set or this and this, or they won't work with you. So it's one of the only times you really get to, you know, to have those wishes. And that's why I talk about a living will as well. Like, have those conversations early if you can. Often death comes to us as a surprise, especially when they're young. Our friend Adam. So I'm prepared for it, but why not? Why not have those conversations and choose your music? And my mother didn't want anyone wearing black at the funeral. It was a very colourful funeral. So just simple things like that will, will make the difference. You know, we celebrate birth, we're prepared for it, and I know we've got 9 months' notice, but in the understandings I have of the ancestral village, and we're in the living village, they know, they get warning, they know when you're coming, they have time to prepare for us too. Even if it's something that we, from our side, we see it as instant, maybe a car accident or something like that, they know it's going to happen, they're preparing for you. So it is a great opportunity to have those conversations, and the people feel safer about it, and it actually brings family together too. I know people always say there's a lot of, you know, it brings out the worst in people. So do weddings, you know. But I've also seen it do the complete opposite as well. Just really, I've seen massive voids join. I've seen family that haven't spoken to each other for a long time reconnect, you know. Yeah. One of the last things I'll touch on about finance too is, you know, laws are one of the last things to keep up. Our technology keeps up, our, you know, healing sort of modalities keep up. So we have, you know, so if you think about the whole inheritance thing, right, you got to wait till someone passes, and then, you know, the state gets hold of it and the lawyers get hold of it, and so again, this can all be still written down, so it's not in people's heads, so it's all clear and transparent. But one of the things my father did was he forwarded some inheritance to his grandchildren. So the beauty of that is he got to see his granddaughter get a horse and ride a horse because he forwarded that that money for, you know, before he passed. So he got to not only experience that, and that no one's fighting over it at the end, you know. The other thing, I've got a friend who, you know, or for anyone who's unwell and needs medical treatment, who may be older and their parents are elder, why do we have to wait for them to pass to access those funds, especially if it's a health issue? Imagine if that money could be brought forward for life supporting operations or an education or something. So I can see that, you know, people are like, oh, but, you know, then there's nothing left and no one looks after the person who's passing. Well, no, it's all written down and clear, and they don't give it all away. But, you know, when you look at the state of homelessness at the moment and how expensive everything is, if you know you're on your way out, and a lot of us do know we've been given a terminal, you know, diagnosis or whatever, or 100, you know.
Yeah, getting...
you know, not allowed on a plane anymore, not going anywhere. Well, this is sitting there doing nothing. Let's make magic out of it. Yeah. So I encourage those conversations, and any lawyer worth their salt will be able to write that up so it's all fair and clear and even, you know.
Yeah, that transparency. Yeah, so I'd love to kind of touch on subjects around, the practicality and the things, because I guess I would love listeners to leave this conversation, or after they've heard this conversation, to be proactive about their living will and writing a will, knowing that the two people who just passed in my life didn't do their will, and Blake and I haven't done ours, and we are in the process of making it happen now, because we can, how important it is, and supporting the loved ones in my life who are now dealing with the repercussions of no will being done. And it's painstaking, because you're dealing with grief, and then you've got to be in your brain and thinking and filling out forms and trying to find money and pay rent, and your world's been turned upside down if it's something that's happened really quickly. So that's one part. I think, go out and get your will done, but also, and create, like, I spoke to a friend about it. She's like, yeah, my husband and I did ours, and it was actually a really enjoyable process, because we got to create and have a think and share with the other person what we want our funeral, or how we want, not necessarily a funeral, but how we want our celebration to go. What, you know, there's so many different, it's like creating your final party, but you have a play and a say in it. So that was it's very encouraging, because I think I was like in that frame of mind of, the will's a thing that you do when you're old. It's like you can revisit it every year and make it fresh if you've changed and you've got new ideas about things. But also, I feel like with the birthing realm, like as an experience of mum and as a mother, the information that I got through the hospitals, which was very little because I didn't really attend much of it, and I had the intention of home birthing. But I feel like with working with the palliative care and the hospitals and things, they don't actually tell us these things, like you can get a cold plate delivered to your house and you can keep your family member there until other people arrive, and you can have your own ceremony and take as much time as you like to say goodbye. So could you touch on some things that you've learnt in your doula?
In my doula world. And like I said, it kind of came natural to me, and I think that's kind of why I've stepped into this now, is because so many people are missing these incredible opportunities, because we've got this one-size-fits-all system and churn them in, churn them out sort of thing. So yeah, when it comes to rights, things like you absolutely have the right to keep the body at home. There are many places now that can rent you a cold plate, which is exactly what they would be if they were off at the morgue. A lot of old cultures, most cultures will say, you know, that moving the body straight away is not the answer. Many cultures say it takes 3 to 4 days. You know, in fact, I could feel my father still in the house 2 days later. Like, he had a certain way of breathing, and I ended up doing it, and I'm like, oh my God, he's floating through me, you know. And so he was very present. It took him a long time to actually leave his home. So there are things like that. And as far as being a doula goes, it's one of those things where you go, oh, you know, I mean, I don't want to make $1 million of it, but, you know, I've got all these skills and things to share. It's not a product-driven thing, you know, like people don't go, oh, I'm 30, I'll go book my death doula now and sort of thing. But you know, we're there. I can't stress enough, even if you don't use a doula for your entire process, we have so much resource. And we can really be that glue between family members, particularly if there's an estranged relationship, you know, and they won't be in the room with the past person without the other one. You can actually be the glue in the middle. And so there's, you know, we're resourced and we have experienced so many different things. So yes, you can keep them at home. Of course, you'll need a cold plate. Far North Queensland, you know, hopefully there's an air conditioner in the room too. That helps a lot. You don't have to have a funeral at a funeral parlour. You can cremate in your own yard. You can, depending on rural, like you were saying before, if you're in a rural setting, you can get permits for that. Otherwise, you can put ashes in other places. You don't have to leave them at a crematorium or anywhere like that. What else can I think that people were just not aware of? Oh, I guess also just being around someone who's passed. Like quite often caskets are open. You know, if you do have a funeral or even if you have a ceremony at home, the casket can be open. And people are just not ready for it. So there's opportunity to just kind of brief people and go, well, you know, their soul's gone, so they're not warm to touch. So cueing them in, things like that. Also, I when I was doing my entry-level nurse training, one of my teachers was a palliative care nurse, and I can't remember his name, but God bless him. He would medically, when they need to experiment on live people, if they're testing new drugs or whatever, you know, I know that there are medical trials that you can sign up for, but they tend to do a lot of testing on people that are dying. And these are his words, not mine, so I'm not being...
speaking verbatim.
I'm not speaking verbatim, but he literally would say the doctors would definitely... If you come from a lower socioeconomic group, you're assumed not very educated, right? And we're not. None of this we're taught at school. All our culture and traditions are lost. So we're lost in this space. So your loved one's in the hospital. They're more likely to ask a family that is a garbage collector and a hairdresser, can we do some testing on, they're dying anyway, it would be for the greater good. We've heard that before. If your father's in hospital and dying and you're a lawyer and you're
a nurse or you have medical experience,
they're not going to ask this of you because they know. So there is advocacy for people who don't know. Don't say yes because you think you have to. If someone's of an authority, a police officer, in a white coat, a doctor, None of that. Like, get advice. There's advice out there. There's, you know, I can put a whole bunch of links. I can give you links that people can go to. The state trustee is really informative. When I was looking after my father in Melbourne, I had a family member question my motives around it and almost accuse me of something that was untoward. And I'm like, and I had to really question myself. I'm like, oh, you know. So I was able to, the state trustee, there's the something of public advocacy, so they can give you advice around if you are doing the right thing or if there is a conflict of interest. But yeah, a death doula who's spent a lot of time in that space will really be able to help, even if you just have them and consult with them once or twice, or whether you have them for a month or once a week for a year. It will just make that process so much better for everyone. Yeah, because you know, like we all talk about a baby when it's being born. Yeah. There's a mother involved, there's a father involved, there's often siblings involved, and it's the same with, sure, someone's dying, but they have a family and they have, you know, there's
all their dynamics.
You know, the whole dynamics around it. You know, and so it's not just care for that particular being. It's permaculture. It's a system, the ecosystem. It's the ecosystem. That's it, which needs to be taken care of as well. And that's where grief and grieving together and working together and having really healthy systems in place. Music chosen, lots of laughing, all of those sorts of things. You'd be surprised how funny death is if you let it be, and how much humour and how much joy can come out of it.
Yeah.
I know we've strayed a bit away from, you know, practical things, but if you can be relaxed in that space and know what needs doing, it just makes it so much different for everyone, and so much better, obviously, for everyone involved. Yeah.
A sense of grace around it. And I really loved, you know, my aunt just passed, and her wish, even though, you know, things progressed quickly and there was no will sorted, she said, I want you guys to have a party. Like, there's no crying. This is what I want. They have a record player. Play music.
Yeah.
Keep playing music. Get tequila. Make good food. Invite everybody over and have a party. Not a full-on party, but like, I want laughter. I want people talking about all the good stories, you know, and it's that was the sense. You open the door to walk in. We got her from the hospital back home. Everything was sorted so that she could die comfortably in her house. People flying in from all over Australia because she's this well-loved person, her family, her friends. See, music, it was just, you know, it had this sense of grace, and, you know, I think we're all feeling this deep sense of sadness, but there was a community. She made that sure that there was a community of people eating, because she was a foodie, playing good music and talking and supporting one another. And I just think that's such a beautiful legacy to even have, you know, to influence whilst you're passing into the other world. It's like not all experiences are like that.
Yeah. And also, two of the gifts my mother gave me was, you know, she spoke earlier about it. She said, always just have a photo. If you've got a photo of me, just put a flower near it. You know, she's all about the roses. So we know that. We know that I have a photo of my mother, and there's always fresh flowers near it.
Beautiful.
There was something else that was really... Oh, that's right. That's, you know, again, learning all these cultural traditions about it. People ask about... So when... you lose someone, and of course we always talk to them. I talk to my dad all the time, and often the question is asked of me, like, how do you know they're listening? How do you know they're really there? Or how do you really deeply commune with them? There'll be something in your relationship with that person that you can relate to. So my mother would call me butterfly. I would never stay still. I was always doing something. So there's this butterfly language that we speak through, you know. So every time I think of her, and I mean every time, a butterfly will appear. So so you find this common language between the village of the ancestors and the village of the living, and you find this language that you can then, and you'll know it, and it's real, and that's the way you commune with them. Yeah, so, and I found that once I learnt to do that, and I learnt to do that with, I lost my best friend at 14 years old, and and because we were at high school, there was no social workers back then, everything was business as usual, and I swear she's turned up so many times in my life, and I really didn't know how to manage it, although like I knew I had some sort of gift even when I was little, you know, like I said, I'd be at funerals and I'd see the soul guides coming in, you know, and what have you. So I finally, once I got that bit of knowledge, I went, oh, right, now I know how to communicate with her. Because we were besties, you know. So I can now relate to her and speak to her, and I know when she's around because I learned that skill. So that's a little gift. Just find that common language you have, and if you can have a conversation beforehand, that's great. You know, my dad said, you know, whenever you're walking the dog, because he's a dog lover, you know, so walking the dogs, he was very vocal in encouraging that sort of thing while he was alive. So it was a no-brainer. It was really easy for us. But a lot of people miss that and they go, I don't know if they're hearing me, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, you know, just find that common thing and it'll start landing.
It does, yeah. I am already planting seeds like that with my daughter because I do things that she makes fun of me about. Like I always, when a song finishes, I always add my little bit to it. No. And she's like, why do you do that? I'm like, because when I go, when I'm no longer here and you're growing up, you know, later on in life, you'll hear the end of the song from my voice and you're going to do it as well, you know. It's like that we have our little things and we can be planting these seeds now for, you know, the beyond. Yeah, absolutely. And plants, you know, this is a conversation around plants and permaculture, and plants play such a big role. They integrate and they're connected to everything and life. But in death, I found when my grandmother passed, the first thing I felt like doing was going outside and touching the earth. And I picked all of these flowers from the garden at the hospital, palliative care. Yeah. And I brought them inside and I just laid them all over her body because that felt right. Yeah. And it was, you know, they're a bit dry, you know, what hospital rooms are like. It's nothing like at home. And so that just felt like the right thing to do. I was probably breaking a whole lot of rules, whatever. But can we kind of move into conversations around plants and death as well? Like, what have you noticed? What have you seen? What do you utilize in your life around plants and permaculture and death? Yeah, so one of my deepest wishes, you know, I have for quite a few years wanted to create this hippie hospice, you know, a place where I want to grow old, barefoot, you know, and painting and having fun and living in the garden. So one of that was a perfume, like it's you know, smell, like as you get older, and we tend to talk about being older and dying, you know, but smell is one of the most important memory triggers. Yeah, the olfactory. Yes. Right. It's in fact it's one of the most. It is the most connected. The smell of freshly cut grass will bring everyone back to a particular memory in their childhood. I just want to say I had a lady come in today and ask me, what is the smell that's around? And I said, it's frankincense. And she told me a story about her mum taking frankincense and burning it at the cemetery when she was a child. And she was just walking past the shop. That smell connected. So sorry, I just wanted to plant that one, but you were saying that how smell is. Yeah, so that's true. So again, I always use lots of essential oils when you're embalming a body. Oh my God, if you can ever wash your loved one's body, this is one of the most sacred things you can ever do, you know. So
My father and I travelled a lot together. We walked the streets of New York. We travelled a lot together. So I remember, my sister and I washed his body, but I just spent so much time on his feet, because his feet and my feet have just traversed the world, Yes. So, and again, so oils, which are most amount of flowers, same thing. We covered my father with flowers while he was there for 5 days in the house. And flowers appear in just about every ceremony in the modern world anyway. But yes, smell is really important. And as you get older, you lose your sense of taste, you lose your eyesight, your hearing, but smell stays strong. So this is where plants really shine in that space. And of course, embalming as well. So the oils will preserve, and again, when you're caring for someone, go back to when your mother was looking after you and you say, what would she rub on your chest? Okay, it may have been Vicks, but ultimately that's eucalyptus, right? And so it's a touch as well as the smell, right? It's all connected. So I think that is incredibly important. And of course, plants filter the air as well. So a lot of ancestors will come, so there's all sorts of things in the air, and having plants around is important no matter what time of your life it is. So having plants where you sleep to help break up the EMFs, to keep you connected to nature, because we used to spend 80% of our life outside now. Used to. I can't even imagine what the stats are now, especially for children, So, vitamin D, all of that sort of stuff. And of course, a flower is the ultimate expression of that plant, isn't it? It's just every bit of energy and sunlight and water and hydrogen, every molecule is coded to create that expression of life, right? So that's where flowers, where plants really feature heavily, and of course caskets are made of timber, so on and so forth. So it's hard to escape, and you don't want to escape that. You want to be immersed in that because that's where you've come from. That's where you're going back to. Bury me in a pile of rose petals every time, and we get so precious in the middle, don't we? Like we're whole and perfect when we're born, right? And we are when we die too. When someone is in complete and peace and not in fear, and everything in between is kind of this discovery, and then we go home, right? We come here to explore, learn. We go home. So we take the smells, we take the... there's an amazing sense of nurture when it comes to flowers and perfumes and smells and plants,
Hey, this is a quick interlude. I trust you're enjoying the episode thus far. Did you know that the Elder Tree is a not-for-profit organisation? We are empowering grassroots herbal education and earth skills to ensure holistic healthcare is accessible to everyone. Beyond this podcast, we have the Elder Tree Trove, which is our Patreon community. It's more than a membership, it is a space where our listeners become co-creators of our mission, which is to secure the future of herbal medicine in Australia with an education centre and healing sanctuary in far north Queensland of Australia. To be more involved, you could join us as a Patreon and become an integral part of our community. For just $2 or even $8 per month, you can stay connected with the herbalists, the healers, and the permaculturists we interview and access their special content and offers and their ongoing expertise, all for you to harvest. Now let's get back into the interview.
Because they're their own sentient beings, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people, there's a movement and conversation around living cemeteries now too, of, people opting to have a tree planted over them as opposed to a grave. Is that something that's coming into the conversation with Douling, or is that just a conversation and it's not really happening?
There's been a lot. It's really interesting. Golf courses and cemeteries. Think of from a realist, in this modern crazy space is everything world in cities. Golf courses and cemeteries take up a lot of real estate. I know that sounds really crass, but this is the truth, right? So the Japanese experimented with vertical burying. So you get buried vertically and then but of course all the composting and all the bugs and the worms and the bacteria are in the top half a meter. So when you get buried vertically, it doesn't work so well. So horizontal's the way to go. There's water treatment now. You can be like waterified and turned into mush.
Wow.
There's a new system in America that they literally turn you into compost, and you get handed this beautiful bag of compost to then go and grow a tree with.
Wow.
Obviously you can, if you opt for cremation, you can have those ashes, and and people think, they throw all these bodies in. They can't. If you're being handed ashes, they are your person's ashes.
Yeah.
So you can always use them to plant something in a pot or whatever. But I believe Crystal Castle down in Mullumbimby, they allocated. There's a wonderful woman down there called Zenith Farago.
Oh, I've seen her documentary.
Yep.
Yes.
She negotiated, I think, with Crystal Castle. There's actually a forest there, and it's not necessarily one body, one tree, but I think you can get buried amongst there, or your ashes can be put there. But yeah, they are starting to work out more viable ways. Traditionally, like for instance, I know in Indonesia they do the funeral prior, and they actually burn the bodies still. Yeah. That's very ceremonious. I'm sure First Nation have incredible ceremony around sorry business. So again, we have this tendency in the West to to commodify everything and make things official, and not so much official but efficient, and it's like, this is just the way it is. Unfortunately, you can't get buried at sea anymore. But again, we're talking about laws made by men. What about the laws made by God? What if you fell off a boat? Which, that's one of my main near-death experiences. I actually, and I was thinking about it the other, when we decided to have this conversation and whether you put this in or not. I thought, what, I've never publicly talked about this. And I've done so much study on near-death experience. I'm like, well, I'll just go fall off a boat. Like in a way, not that was my intention, but I have lived a very full life, and I've always thought that, well, I almost want to choose my way to go. And if I feel like my time's done and I'm ready to go, I will wander into a forest. I will go sailing and then just
sail off into the sunset.
And then no one gets to say whether I get buried at sea or not. I'll just bury myself at sea. Yeah. So, again, as humanity moves through, our cycles, we're really being separated from our mother, which is Gaia, And the more people do to get back to that connection, I'm in full support of that. Ceremonies with the body. I know often when people have, someone's passed, they've taken that body down to the lake where they all used to go, and they've had picnics with them and, brought them back. And I think this stuff's really important. But your question was really about burying alternatives. I want to be skinned. I want someone to wrap my ass skin over a drum and play me till I die. Use my bones as drumsticks. How precious are we? It's only our ego that tells us we're not whole and is constantly got us searching for things, and we're not enough, and all these sorts of things. And I must admit, I've been dancing around this for ages, even as a pet sitter. If an animal's old and is going to die, it's going to die. It's just one of those things, you know. So I've kind of really had the full experience of pet sitting and going, okay, well, just so you know, there's a really good chance it will die on my watch, and you know, and
because you're the space holder, so it's like it's choosing. Interesting.
And the amount of times I've been involved in an ocean rescue, and you know, and all this sort of stuff, and you know, they're lost, but you're there, and you can't. It's such a sacred space to be in.
Yeah.
I think the less we can be scared of it.
Yeah.
You know, we celebrate birth beyond measure, you know, and dying well is one of the best things you can do. You know, we live well. We every day you get up, well, most of us get up and go, what is the best thing I could do today? And you try your best and you do your best. But we actually divert dying, you know, like you know, this cream will make you younger. Eat this and you'll live forever. Like, you're actually
trying to outdo the goddess and creation, and you know, it's like you said with the conversation around Gaia and coming back, it's like if you really tune in and understand and connect with that, you know that it's all transforming, and as all the seasons, and you know, spring eventually becomes winter. Like, you can't stop it. There is the falling of the leaves, there is the ever-changing seasons of growth and death.
And it's someone else's death hundreds of years ago. Well, first of all, during their life, when they were alive, they planted trees knowing that in a couple of 100 years' time, someone will cut them down and build a house with them and grow a family. And then that family will die, and it is their goodness that will grow the next trees, and so on and so forth. So, and again, we separate ourselves out of that process, and it's just, it's the main linchpin, if we could come back to that, and stop seeing death as something to be feared, rather, and it should be something to be aspired to. A beautiful, healthy, gorgeous. Oh my God! I think my mother's last meal was a pina colada, right? And my father didn't repeat a joke that he'd heard, created a fresh written joke. Like 2 or 3 days before because he was just in that well-held, loved space, you know.
Beautiful.
So we got to stop fearing it, and we really got to start embracing it.
Yeah.
You know?
That's special.
So I know where I was going with that story, because, you know, I'd had all these experiences and near-death experiences, and again, it doesn't matter who you speak to, what religion they come from or anything, it's the same story. You go into this space between life and death. You get a choice. You feel your wholeness for the first time since you were born. And every account that I've ever heard, you get this choice. You can keep going or you can go back. I was treading water for 20 minutes in the middle of an ocean, 2,000 miles offshore, when my harness broke and I went overboard, and we were in a big sea, and I could tell that they'd lost sight of me. At no point did I panic. I just knew that I wasn't dying that day. It was really interesting. Although I felt like it was really calm and really peaceful, even though I kind of went, there's probably a gazillion sharks and whatever. There was something happens, right? And you are so looked after. I encourage anyone to look up, there are a number of near-death experience stories, people all over the world, and it's the same story. And it's pure bliss. There's nothing to be scared of. But there is a saying, something like, so for today I may die, and how is that different to any other day? You know, we do live in a world where we think we're not going to die, and we squander our time and we do all these things. If you truly, and when you're with someone who's dying or have just had a death in your family or whatever, it really makes you live.
Yeah.
It really reminds you of the important things
Yeah.
and how this all really can just, it is really how you approach it. And if, for me, one of the biggest take-home messages is don't be scared of it, embrace it. It will be one of the most amazing experiences for yourself and the other person, you know.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm noticing that a lot of women are giving themselves like a 40-day healing kind of baby moon. And I'm wondering, around the death space, is there culturally, you know, like our Indigenous people here, they have sorry business. And I felt myself kind of in this space of all of my busyness of life, but needing to actually stop and I'm like, I feel like culture is something that I'm like, and ritual and ceremony is something that I'm always seeking because I grew up without it. And so I'm like, what are my words for sorry business? Can I borrow that? and explain to people I'm not functioning right now in the sense of I'm not doing, I'm just being with grief right now.
Yeah.
I'm taking some time off. Are you noticing, or like, what's your advice around, you know, sorry business or time in terms of grief and things like that when processing death?
Yeah, and people put grief into the feeling category. I feel grief, you know. It's its own thing, and it presents in such different ways. And it doesn't necessarily present straight away either.
Yeah.
There are a lot of groups I've sat in where people have gone, I didn't shed a tear till 5 years later.
Yeah.
You know? I know when my mother passed, I went straight into event management mode and went, I'm just going to create the most beautiful funeral ever and just keep myself busy and I don't have to think about it. But grief is actually the oar that you can paddle through the sadness with. It actually holds you and it connects. It's so much more than a feeling. It's a process. It doesn't have a timeline. It doesn't ever look the same. They say it has stages, but even that's kind of compartmentalized. It's an embodiment, I guess. But as far as, you know, having your own time, I think from a doula's perspective, this is where, you know, I really encourage people to engage someone like that, because it's like I'm not scared. I can see you're scared and I can see you're frightened and you're about to lose your grandma or whatever. I'm not. So here, borrow my unscaredness, borrow my strength, you know, and you can give that to people. So all of a sudden they've got someone in the room that knows about grief and knows it's okay to cry and knows it's okay to laugh and knows it's okay to fart and everything is okay, you know. So grief and allowing it and not blocking it and not thinking that you have to wear black and be sad and, you know, what have you is probably one of the most freeing things you'll learn. Really unstructuring what we believe to be the right way to do things. There is no right way. It's your way. It's the way. Yahweh.
Yahweh. Oh, I love that insight. Yeah, and how you said there's no timeline for it.
No.
Like, I still feel whenever I see a big full moon, tears come, and it's, you know, that memory of sitting with my grandmother at the time of her passing. There was all these big super moons in Townsville, and that's what she wanted to do. That was the last outings. She was like, take me to the Strand, and we just sat there and watched this moon, and she was just like, look wow, you know, and her awe, and you know, there's years later and I'll still shed tears, but they're tears of joy and but the memory's connected. And it's like grief. I think if we're not scared of grief and we're not scared of death, then it's those things can come and go and we accept them as life.
Yes. And what we were talking about before. So yeah, it's not actually death we fear. We perceive dying as painful and awkward, and it really doesn't have to be that way. And we're not so much scared of the death, we're scared of the pain or discomfort.
Yeah.
And there doesn't need to be any of that. And planning helps, and having conversations help. And, you know, living your fullest at that moment, really important. And not being scared, you know. You know, especially with elders, like one of the first things, if there's family members present, you know, like, is there anything undone or not said, or you know, my father used to talk about a war friend of his all his life that he lost contact with, and my brother and I did try and find this particular fella, Jackie Ellis, you know, couldn't find him, but yeah, just things like that, and you'll be surprised. They'll be like, well, actually, yes, there is. That's what you say. La, 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 la. So, yeah, grief is a tool. Grief is a gift, actually. Grief is the reward for surviving it. Yeah, it's actually a gift if you know how to use it well. Yeah, and it's not all steeped in sadness. Because it's through your grief you tell the stories, you know, like my father telling the joke, or the full moons, and, you know, and that's how you relive it. And that's how you keep them alive. They're alive in you because their blood's in your blood. They created you. They created your parents, and they created you. So when we talk reincarnation, that's how I feel. That's real life in reincarnation. And yeah, by keeping them alive in songs and stories, this is how they live on.
Yeah, so make good memories now.
Yeah. and they will come to you when they're needed. I remember it was right before Cyclone Jasper, and you know, everyone's preparing, and I'm thinking, God, is it going to be another one that just blows over, or should I be paying more attention? Because, as you know, I live in a tiny house which is not secured to the ground, so I'm like, well, you know, what shall I do? And just as I was thinking about that, a picture my father and I made together, which had been on my wall for 3 years, hadn't budged. And I don't even know how it fell off because it was secured on a hook. It fell off and shattered into a million pieces. And I was actually outside when it happened. Something smashed. I'm like, what's in my house that's glass? That's weird. So I walk around and I'm like, oh, Dad. And I'm like, right, what was I thinking about when that happened? And I'm like, right, I was wondering whether I should take this cyclone seriously or not. What happened? Fully flooded, you know, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, he was tuning in, going, get your stuff sorted, do it well. So it's not woo-woo, it's real.
It's real.
Know? Yeah.
Yep, so many beautiful stories like that.
Yeah.
Please, everybody, go out and share those stories.
Yes.
Nicole do. All right, well, talking about living a good whole life, what's alive and thriving in your world right now?
Oh, well, yes. So, because I've been doing this death doula thing, and again, just watching people, you know, not really, everything's changing and it needs to change, right? Mm-hmm. So, and my partner and I have just bought some land, and I have kind of been talking about this. Well, can we have a community space where people can come to have their last moments of life, you know, and their family can stay. So I've looked at, you know, can we create a forest that's going to always be in our community, where people can share people's ashes, and then, you know, in 4 generations' time, we know our great-great-grandparents are there. I don't have children. I've got godchildren. But I love that, because that's kind of how I grew up with that. And if I can leave a legacy, I'm trying to work out if there's a way of creating a space on this land. I mean, we do want to, you know, build a home and live there, but is there a corner of it that can be gifted to community for ceremony, for First Nations? So I'm kind of toying with that idea. That's keeping me alive. I'm kind of, you know, a bit freaked out. I didn't think I'd be starting with a blank slate at this point in my life, but that's also exciting too, because anything is possible. That perfume garden we talked about is so close. Yes. So every day I want to smell something beautiful, and that really ties in with that space as well. Yeah, permaculture, permanent culture. So that's kind of, well, having to move house. Just constantly moving. And that's what it is, staying still but moving. So that's got me sparked at the moment, and how my death doula work can serve the community. And also the Skillshare thing, you know, going back to really creating community, and having assets for the community, a shed full of tools for the community. I'd love to do a build our coffin session, you know, and in the she shed, or, you know, have a death cafe. That's a concept that came out a few years ago, where you just meet up at a cafe and talk about death, and maybe you don't talk at all. There's some lovely women in Cairns that run a thing called Gentle Conversations at Limberlost once a month, and you can get there and talk about things, or your grief, or say nothing, or just be with people. That's really beautiful. Those sorts of things are blossoming. Yeah, I'd love to. I'm sparked at the idea of creating some sort of space that we can gather.
Yay! Well, I think it's very exciting to know that you're going to be part of the Koa community. Can I say that? Is
yes,
it allowed?
I think you can. Yes.
And, you know, with all of your experience of building tiny homes, and you're very practical. I was looking at your special shelf table transformation island thing that you've made here. It's a really beautiful concept to open up, you know, you're a part of your land and garden for the wider community to be having these conversations, especially with your experience, to really hold that space and listen in and offer and guide around the conversation on death, and in your permaculture garden.
Yes, that's right, where we can pick the flowers for the ceremonies. You know, and this is definitely not happening by myself. There's a group of women that started in Port Kembla in New South Wales, tender funerals they've got now, but basically affordable funerals. But they are very much about educating the community around and bringing it back into the home. You know, like I said before, we used to be a group of people that knew what to do when someone was dying, and we just don't know anymore, and we need to know. You know, we really need to gain back that sovereignty and agency over our bodies at the most special times, birth and death. And I mean, not that everything in between isn't special, but they are sacred, special moments that will really determine how you move through life.
Yeah.
So there's lots of resources. I might quickly just name some things now. You talked about wills.
Yep.
There's a wonderful website called gatheredhere.com.au. It is a free online will service. They have all sorts of resources. They talk you through probates, funerals, rites, things like this. So gatheredhere.com.au. I highly recommend you tune into tender funerals. They offer all sorts of things. Zenith Virago, who's northern New South Wales based, she's got, I mean, you don't have to become a death doula to do a course. Like just get, and there's lots of knowledge out there around gentle conversation. So gentle not underscore, the dash in the middle, conversations.com. They actually have a bit of a questionnaire that you can actually print off. Here's the first question. In the weeks before I die, I would like to ... Right? So this is what we're calling a living will. Imagine choosing, having all those decisions made for you, because you would know, having lost someone, you're already in grief. Some of these things are really hard, and if they're taken care of, if there is a document that says, I would like roses, I want this song at my wedding, here is where the money is for my funeral, and blah 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 blah. Oh my gosh, half the battle's done,
And to practical things like, this is where all of the passwords are to all of my stuff on my computer.
That's right, passwords and all those sorts of things. What do you want to be remembered as being good at? Who's speaking it, who's doing your eulogies? There's all sorts of guides. So that's gentle-conversations.com. Two people I highly recommend: Stephen Jenkinson, Canadian, great book, Die Wise. All his books, also on Audible, just such a great guide. And Dr. Sarah Kerr, I've done a bit of training with. She came to Australia this year, and her course was in Melbourne, which is where I grew up. It was so hard going back there because by that stage my family house had sold, so I kind of felt I was untethered, I always had reasons to go back to Melbourne, but I don't now. It's a real untethering. So the fact that I got to do her courses, and there were people there that weren't necessarily death doulas, they were just interested. So, and she's got some great online resources, God bless her. So that's sacreddeathcare.com. But I will give you all of these notes so you can pop them in the chat.
They'll be in the show notes. Amazing. Well, is there anything you would like to say before we finish up our episode today?
That, they do say, live like it's your last day on earth, and it's such a throwaway line, but, now and then, once a week, wake up and go, if today was my last day on earth, I'm going to walk the beach, take the day off, whatever it is, eat twice as much chocolate as normal, and just to know that you're whole and perfect, and it really is our human coil that tells us we're not enough. We are born so perfect, and we can die perfect too, and or whole at least. And love is the answer.
Always. Love it. Thank you so much for sharing this. So can be vulnerable conversation for many people to listen to.
Yes.
Thank you for holding this space and for joining us up the hill in the Koa community. I just feel like there's so much goodness to unfold with all the people up there, and the ways that we're thinking and the futures that we're working towards, and all these little pieces of the puzzle. Happy days, happy death.
Yeah, happy. That's right. I'm so blessed. Yeah, because I grew up in that, and I would see so many people that were missing that in our lives, and I just want it back. So I'm so glad to have discovered Far North Queensland and the tribe up here, and I really feel like this is definitely home now, and I'm really looking forward to really grounding myself, holding space for people, and then being in the ground, being part of the soil that feeds our future.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it now with someone you know will benefit from this information. And remember, we're not just talking about change, we are cultivating it. Through these conversations and through the Elder Tree Patreon community, together we are sowing the seeds for an education centre and healing sanctuary. You can unlock access to our treasure trove of wisdom via our Patreon, so you can do that in the show notes below or from our website. Please subscribe now and leave us a review. It really helps the bots share our podcast with the world, and your support ensures that this podcast and our vision can thrive. To grow them is to know them is to use them is to love them, and then happily herbs become your way of life. May you be blessed with good health and many plants.